Perfect. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Devyani. I'm great. Thank you so much for organizing this. It's absolutely awesome.
Thank you so much for being a part of this, and a huge thank you to everyone who is watching this on live stream. We're live streaming this event on YouTube, and everyone who has registered for this event is getting the link and joining in there. So, thank you so much for joining in our live stream. This is presented to you by Ekansh Foundation in collaboration with VS Studio and media partner Sanmar. So, Ekansh is a Gen Z led non-profit organization that aims to provide vocational education to underprivileged students. So, if you are in a position where you can donate, please do visit the link in our bio. And if you're not able to donate, please feel free to volunteer or just spread awareness about the importance of vocational education because that conversation will go a long, long way. A big thank you to Aishwarya Di for joining in and sharing her insights on Oxford. So, welcome to College Roundtable Oxford edition. Aishwarya Mukhopadhyay holds an MPhil in social anthropology from the University of Oxford and a bachelor's in history from St. Stephen's College. She is also a DPhil candidate in social anthropology in the University of Oxford. She is passionate about the histories of material objects and their social biographies. So, over to you.
Hi. Yeah. Hello everyone. So basically, this session, we wanted to talk a little bit about Devyani sent me over some questions, and we thought we'd go over the questions to answer the most burning questions of how the Oxford journey is, how getting into Oxford or Cambridge, or institutes of that sort. And I'm very happy to answer these questions. And most importantly, I think it's a great initiative. And if you can donate too, if you can spread awareness in any form, feel free to. Yeah. So will you be asking the questions, or should I be kind of, because I have the questions with me, so should I be like going over them?
I think I'll ask the question. So, just to start, so I'm sure getting into Oxford was not an easy ride. So, any struggles which led to the acceptance?
I mean, yeah, it wasn't a cakewalk. I've done easier things in life. And also, I feel like, I got through Oxford twice for my MPhil and then for my PhD. The bachelor's entrance is a bit different compared to the graduate studies. But at each level, for my MPhil, for my PhD, there was a different struggle because the process is, and if you apply for bachelor's, it's equally different. So the process itself is very different. The requirements are different, but there are such certain things which I will go over later, where all the requirements are actually pointing towards similar things. I think the biggest struggle at that point, at any point when you're applying for anything, is that sense of uncertainty that looms, and you really you also have a lot of self-doubt, because also like given my academic trajectory, I got done with my boards in class 12 in 2016. I got through Stephens in 2016. Then 2019, I got through Oxford, did my MPhil. 2021, 2 years of MPhil. And here I am, doing my PhD. It's my first year of PhD. So if you see at my academic trajectory, it's very, very academically inclined, right? So obviously there's a lot of self-doubt going on, like where do I stand? Am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Will I get through? So things like that. And also I think for all candidates, I think they should keep note of the marking system in India is very different from what they want in the UK, what the requirements are. So kind of getting that, knowing what is a first class, what is a 2:1 degree, things like that. And yeah, so I think these were the struggles largely. And of course the SOP was also a struggle. It's no cakewalk. So yeah.
So I believe we are allowed to apply to only 5 colleges. I'm sure about that for the undergraduate degree. I'm not really sure about that for the graduate degrees. So do you think that becomes a little restricting?
So you see, I'm not an expert for the undergraduate degree because I haven't done it, but I have done some counseling for it for students from UK. So essentially, the undergraduate degree, you basically choose between, for if you're talking about Oxbridge, you're basically going to choose between Oxford or Cambridge. So you can't apply to both, as far as I know. You can only apply to any one. So for example, if you choose Oxford, now like for example, and I guess a lot of you are from India, whoever's listening. For example, you have Delhi University, right? So
Yeah.
in Delhi University you have colleges, right? So you have Stephens, Hindu, LSR, Ramjas and the likes, right? So within that, it's a little similar to like the Delhi University thing, that you basically applying to the college, you know. So for your undergraduate, the college becomes very important. So it's a matter of the college accepting you, right? So I guess you have a certain limit of colleges. You can't apply for all the 33 colleges that are there at Oxford, but yeah, you can, I think, apply only for some of them, and you have to choose the college prudently also, because as an international student you have to see who gives those international scholarships if you need one. Some people don't need, which is perfectly fine, but you know, to getting that research done is really important. And when it comes to graduate studies, when it, you know, the college, it is for Oxford especially, it is very much subject oriented. So wherever you have your department people, your department professors, those colleges, so there's no ranking or anything, you just get a college. So my college, St. Anthony's, is very internationally oriented, and I work in anthropology, so it's very diverse that way as a field. So like, you know, I got that college. So it's like that.
Okay, got it. So any piece of advice for high school students applying to Oxford or, colleges in the UK in general?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, I didn't apply for from high school, so my experience was a little different. But I think there are a few things which remain common. I think what they really look for is, number one is the breadth of knowledge. So like, your how much knowledge do you have? So like right now, you know, our schooling system, at least what it was when I graduated 5 years back, is very restricted, you know, in the sense that if you're doing arts, it's very difficult to do like, if you're doing pure arts, maths or economics, or you know, I don't know, coding, computers, you know, some schools give that flexibility, some don't, you know. So it becomes hard to know everything, but again, it's important to know quite a bit of, you know, you need to have a broad base. Like even now, I had a combination in school of history, pol science, sociology, psychology, English and Bengali. Now I didn't do maths at all, but right now in my PhD I'm 24 and I'm doing maths. I'm learning how to do permutation, combination and trigonometry and things like that all over again. So it's a very different reality to what the Western world wants of you vis-a-vis the Indian system wants of you. Okay. And so a good broad knowledge base, but at the same time, the subject that you're applying to, you need to have a certain depth. You know, you need to know that subject. And most importantly, the third thing is having a clarity of thought, which I think, you know, I'll keep on talking about because it's the most important thing. Essentially, the people who are going to be interviewing you, who are going to know you, don't know you in person. So essentially, what you're presenting is an impression you want them to have of you, right? And so you need to have that clarity of thought, that what are you writing, what is it conveying to them, and whatever you're writing, I would suggest give evidence for it. For example, if you're passionate about, you know, the environment, for example, and you know, you've done a project in school about that, you've tried to bring about a change in your school about that by, I don't know, by waste segment or something, that you've done something. So naturally, they have a lot of applicants. I mean, you have to be very mindful of that how many people are applying with you and how will you stand out. So I feel you can only stand out with this clarity of, to understand, to make the committee understand why you're applying, what motivates you. And you need to have that evidence of that motivation, that what have you done in your life to tell me that you're actually motivated. Because it's very easy to write, oh, I'm passionate about tech, I'm passionate about coding. But, have you created something? Have you created a website? What have you done? So yeah, and also things like, today I'm seeing, like, school students reaching out to me on on LinkedIn, and asking about internships and things like that. So, if you have that opportunity, it wasn't there when we were, in school at all. In college, it was okay to just do 2 internships in 3 years. But now, get your internship, see what awards are there, apply for something, write, create a blog, that is still taken very well. So yeah, these are my
Completely agree with you on the internship parts. Like, I'm 15, I'm in class 10. So I have people around me applying for internships. I've completed 5 internships on my own. So I do understand how important they have become over these years now.
Yeah, for sure. And internships, I think, yeah, I mean, it's very good, because you getting to know what you like and what you don't. So, like, absolutely go for it.
Exactly. And so you've gone into Oxford for social anthropology. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You've gone into Oxford for social anthropology, which is something you don't traditionally study in school or at the school level specifically. So how did you realize that social anthropology was your passion and that was the major you wanted to study at Oxford for your MPhil and now for your DPhil?
Good question. So thing is, understood this much later, but in India, in school, we do study sociology. I mean, some schools offer it. My school, Modern High, I'm very grateful that they offered it, because I absolutely fell in love with the subject. And then, but I wasn't very sure about it at that point. And the thing is, what we do in social anthropology in the UK or in abroad is the same thing Indians call sociology in India. And what we know as sociology in India is largely statistical and quantitative in the West. Does that make sense? So it's basically a semantic difference, really. If in India I'm a sociologist, in the UK I'm an anthropologist, if that makes sense. So anyway, I actually studied history for my undergraduate. I loved history. But, I slowly realized that, I was leaning towards these historical anthropological writers, some of you might have heard Susan Daly, etc. And writers like Amitav Ghosh, he has like literally the same trajectory as me. I mean, I feel very blessed. But he studied history at, Stephenson. He did Anthro, MPhil and PhD at Oxford. And I was very inspired by him and his writing and everything he's doing. So I was inspired by that trajectory, and I really enjoyed what I was doing and what I was reading in undergrad. So I decided to change my course completely. And initially, when I went to Oxford, I wanted to do historical anthropology, so some history elements, some anthropology elements. But that also changed, and now I'm literally working on, present human times. So, I think it's really important to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. And it's a very drab and horrible question, what you want to do for the rest of your life. But I think, you guys are taking the step in the right direction by doing internships right from school, so that at least in your head you're clear that, science karna hai kya nahi karna hai. You want to do commerce, you don't want to do commerce. You want to do arts, you don't want to do arts. So it's really good. And, I would, one little piece of advice is, if, for example, if you're doing science and, but you can write really well, like, don't stop writing, things like that. It really makes a difference later on. And yeah, so this is how I basically I just enjoyed what I did. and I was good at what I did. And you'll figure that out, that if you're not good at what you do, you'll stop enjoying it after a point, especially when it comes to, not like a painting that you can just take up and do for some time and leave it, it's fine. But when it comes to these bigger decisions, you should do something you enjoy.
That sounds really great. Also, when you said that you changed your major, so how flexible are universities when it comes to that?
Yeah, they are. I mean, think about it. My peers in history, so many of them are not doing history now. Somebody is doing many people are doing public policy. Some people have gone into art history, which is history, but it's completely different. Like the theory of itself is different. Some of us have done anthropology. A lot of people are doing sociology. So it is flexible um, as long as you can justify why you're changing.
All
you
right.
know yeah, so if you justify, and obviously if you're changing it, you must be reading and changing, so yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So is this flexibility offered to students in, say, DU colleges, or is it there worldwide?
I mean, it's there worldwide. So for example, like when you're applying for say you've done your BA, like for my case, you've done your bachelor's in history, okay, done. Now, next round, for if you want to apply for your master's in DU or JNU, wherever, you have to, since you're a student of DU, you have two options. First is you can go via merit list. You don't want to change your subject, BA history, then MA history. So you can just be part of the merit list. If you score really well generally, you can expect to be there. Or you have to give the entrance exam, which most people give. So entrance exam, mostly for arts, anybody can give any exam. So you can give a literature exam, you can give a sociology exam, and a lot of people have done that and they've gotten through as well, you know.
All right.
So yeah, it's quite flexible that way.
Okay. And so when and how far in advance do you think you started preparing for your Oxbridge application?
So I was in college in 2016. That's my first year. So middle of second year, so December 2017, I think I started applying. I started looking at the Oxford courses because I was so intimidated by the place. I never opened the website. So I gathered the courage to kind of look what are the courses available, and then I saw a swarm of courses. So it was very difficult. And you see, I was changing my stream. I was very sure I wanted to change, but it's not easy to because if you open the Oxford website for graduate courses, there are hundreds and hundreds of courses. Like, what do you want to do? You might get confused. Anyway, but then I applied. So Oxford has 3 deadlines, one in November, one in January, and one in March. I applied for the first deadline. So November 2018, I applied. So roughly 11 months of prep.
Wow. So you applied for early action or early decision?
So this is how it works. Now you can so there are 3 deadlines, right? So there's a November, December, November, January, and March. So the March deadline, most people don't apply. So let's leave that out. So there's the November and then the January one. So November is the early deadline. January is the funding deadline. So even if you apply in November, you'll be considered for funding. Anyway, so after that, what happened is I applied in November, but I got my decision in March. Another friend of mine, he applied in January. He got his decision in May. So actually, there's no guarantee. I mean,
So is
however,
it
for my
rolling
PhD,
basis?
no, not for Oxford. LSE is rolling basis, SOAS is rolling basis. Like LSE and SOAS say that after application, within 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we'll let you know, which they really did. Because I got through LSE and SOAS as well at that point. But for Oxford, they had sent me a message that in January that we've got a lot more. We didn't get enough applications in November, so we are getting more applications in January. So your decision will be delayed, and it indeed was. I was one of the first ones to get the Oxford decision. Like in Stephen's, quite a few of us got through, but yeah, but it was still late. So But when I applied for PhD, because I was already in the department, etc., it was A, easier, and B, um, I applied in November, got my decision in February.
Wow. So is
So
this also like on the basis of the merit list as it was in Stephens?
yeah, not really. I had to apply again, like you would for even DU. But I got through. Yeah, it's a merit list. Plus, for a PhD, the most important thing really is your proposal. So I didn't have to write an SOP. They just wanted to know what you wanted to do for, the next 2-3 years. So
Got
yeah.
it. Wow. So what do you think made your application stand out from everyone else's who was applying to Oxford? Because Oxford is an extremely competitive college.
Yeah, I'm not a college but a uni. I think everyone has a unique story to tell, honestly. Everybody comes from very different backgrounds, and I think when you go to any international university, which is a diverse space, at least tries to be diverse, there are a lot of people from different backgrounds, different countries, different passions. So every application is really unique. You'll not get the same you know thing in everywhere. So one must, I feel, preserve this uniqueness at all costs, because this is what will make you shine. So your trajectory is going to be different from mine, but it will be unique, and it should look generic on paper. Does that make sense? So when I applied first in 2018-17, that time, on purpose, for some reason, I don't know why I did it, I did not ask for any help. I wrote my SOP, gave a professor to edit. He got back to me with a lot of, good and bad things to say, edited it, and just sent it. That's it. Done. And looking back, this I'll do it on my own attitude is both good and bad. Because on one hand, you should avail all the help you can get. Back then, LinkedIn wasn't such a big thing. But I definitely think it kept the application unique. I didn't even Google how to write an SOP. I just wrote an SOP. They were like, I just tried to understand what they wanted, like, what motivates me. I gave evidence for that motivation, and I just sent it. And I got through. And for my PhD, I didn't need an SOP at all. But essentially, I feel like whatever happens, read other people's SOPs, but don't get too influenced by them. Especially, I feel or do something, if you're writing an SOP, first write an SOP without consulting anyone, without looking at anything. Then you see other SOPs, and then you see what is missing. Because, when you write without any reference or context in mind, you write uniquely. You write in a way which is different. And I think that counts for something. So, yeah.
Definitely. So when you were speaking about diversity in Oxford, so how do you think they try to protect the rights of minorities or people from different backgrounds, say different sexualities or different castes or races? So is there anything specific that Oxford does to preserve them?
I think Oxford as a space is really trying very hard to decolonize. I can't speak for other universities because I haven't experienced them, but I know Oxford, particularly my department, is trying really hard to decolonize and just, make it a more inclusive space. One sec, I'll just, it would be lying if I said that most of the people are not colored. So most people at Oxford are, white, but it seems to be a more diverse space than a lot of other spaces that I have seen. Okay. Right. So I think the colleges have a very big role to play in this regard. What they do is the colleges basically try to accommodate people on intentionally from all countries, all races, all backgrounds, all sexualities. My college, for example, has like an LGBTQ society. We are very open about it. We have discussions about it, and besides, this is just the pastoral needs of people. We had seminars on Black Lives Matter. We had workshops on consent, which is like mandatory by the university. And lastly, I feel like because a lot of us are, especially graduate students, are coming from international waters, there is a lot of international speakers coming in, people from our countries coming in. So a lot of things like that are happening. And of course, academic seminars. I mean, a lot of the literature you read is from spaces like Oxford. So naturally, there's a lot of discussion happening about these issues all the time. So like discrimination all the time. So I think naturally, these spaces have been elite white institutions, which we all understand, especially because, it's very sad sometimes, when you walk through Oxford, like sometimes you feel that, oh, this colonizer probably was from here, walk these same corridors I am walking. But at the same time, not everybody, but a lot of people are trying to bring a change to that space to make it more diverse. And I appreciate that.
Definitely. I think that is so important, and it's so great that Oxford is keeping these things in mind. So, how important would you say each of the application segments are, and what, according to you, was the most important for your Oxbridge application?
I think, so I'll talk about Oxford and I'll talk about Cambridge. I think for Oxford, the most crucial thing to do properly is the statement of purpose, which is the heart and soul of the application. Because as I said, that is where you're giving an impression of, who you are. And you also need to understand, like, especially when you're applying for a graduate course. So after you've done your undergrads, for your graduate, you need to see what the research interests are of the department and how do you fit into that. Okay, because the whole idea in the West is basically for the graduate courses is that there will be a supervisor and you're going to work under that supervisor and kind of come up with a thesis. So it's very research oriented. So for example, you want to work on, say, the environment. Okay, but suppose in a department there is nobody working on the environment, so that may not be a great choice for you because A, nobody has that specialization, and B is nobody like nobody may be able to guide you, so they may not take you. So you also need to understand what is the pulse of the moment going on.
All right.
Right? So that is the Oxford SOP. For Cambridge, or at least for the graduate courses, basically you have a set of questions. So do you need to submit an SOP? I don't think so. But basically what they have is the SOP broken down into questions which you have to answer on their portal. So what I would suggest, if you're applying for Cambridge in a graduate course, like you go through the questions before, try to formulate answers, and yeah. But again, remember, it's all about understanding or syncing with the department. And just because you didn't sync doesn't mean you're bad or something, right? And besides this, there are, of course, writing samples, which Oxford and Cambridge both require for some courses. So you need to assess the quality of writing that you'll send, and also like if there's a word limit, etc. And besides this, there are the GRE IELTS score. It depends from course to course, but these are usually non-negotiable. Like, because they have to see, like, if it's basically largely mandatory. And though we study in English, there are sometimes these institutions are reluctant to accept it, so you have to give it. For some cases I've seen they've accepted, but for other cases I've seen that they've been reluctant. So it really depends from department to department.
So when we speak about GRE, do you have like any tips for people who aim to take the GRE this year?
So I've prepared for the GRE twice, but by God's grace, I never needed to give it. But Well, largely, I don't want to generalize, but I've seen a lot of humanities students struggle with the maths, that is me, and science students struggle with the English and the logic bit. So I feel like whatever you are bad at, please practice that. And for I think humanities students who didn't do maths like me, I would suggest, like, the GRE questions are basically normal questions which are twisted for some reason. And so if you haven't done something like permutation combination in your life, I would suggest that you first do normal permutation combination. You take out the ML Agarwal from your cousin or something, and you start practicing your normal permutation combination, and then you'll be fine. You'll understand the hang of it, and then you'll can do the this thing. But yeah, I think GRE is also a lot about patience. So IELTS, TOEFL, GRE, about sitting in one place and doing the exam digitally for 4.5 hours is a struggle, is something to practice.
Definitely, I'm having a really hard time sitting. I've been sitting in this position for about 5 hours now, and I'm just waiting for this 24-hour thing to end, and then I'm just going to lie down on my bed for the entire day.
I'm sure you deserve all the rest then.
Thank you. So, moving on, what according to you were the most helpful strategies while preparing for the interview? What were some of the resources you used? What were the misconceptions you had about the interview process that you realized were not necessarily extremely true?
Okay, so honestly, my department didn't need any interview. A lot of departments do, like I know the Department of Education requires, some biosciences, etc. require, but I didn't. Now, but not directly relevant, but I did go through a very intimidating interview process for my admission at Stephens. So from there, what I can say is that I think the core idea of an interview is to challenge the person, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, whatever you write, a good interviewer in your application will challenge it. And my interview at Stephens went on for a good half an hour. So it's a big room, it's an old room, dimly lit, with 5 6 professor like people who are all professors, and the principal sitting and you one person. So I'm not sure how Oxford interviews are, but I can imagine something similar, in person, because you have those intimidating spaces at Oxford. But what I can say is that they'll try to challenge everything you write. And that is why I said clarity of thought. You need to have that logic clear, that why you're doing what you're doing, what is the evidence you could. Basically, they are going to argue, make you want to argue that why you're worthy of this space. There are so many candidates out there, and all elite institutions feel the same way, that why you should have an answer for that, actually. That why you should have that self-belief, that I am good enough for Oxford because of this. Because these institutions have their own reputation, and you end up, representing that reputation. At least that is what's thought in theory, right? So you need to be able to answer those questions, and they'll challenge whatever you write. I had written a paper in school on the treatment of women in Bollywood. And a professor at Stevenson, I think, was just doing that to challenge me, asked me, why would you work on women? Why not men? What have men done wrong? What about the stereotypical portrayal of men, in bodybuilding men and idiotic men and loafer men and things like that? And I was so scared by that question. But then I answered it that, women have been historically oppressed, this, that, and this has, film is such an influential medium. And I answered the question, why women and why not men? Because I thought, till then, I thought it's such a, you know, um, obvious question. Obviously, I'll work on women being a woman, but a lot of people do find that would question you, and you need to stick to your ground. But at the same time, while sticking to your ground in these very difficult interviews, if I may say so, you must also be very sure of what you're saying is correct or not. So if you are solved a mathematical problem and your answer is incorrect, be like, don't say that it's correct. Or if you have a doubt if it's correct or not, don't say that I am correct. Be transparent about that. It's okay if you've made a mistake. It's a high pressure environment. But yeah, so be confident. Don't be overconfident, and yeah, have belief in yourself, which will reflect, to the examiner.
Definitely, that is something extremely important. So when we talk about St. Stephen's and Oxford, so both of them are completely different universities. One is a part of Delhi University. So how do you think the education system in both of them are similar or different? As one being a part of Delhi University and Indian education system, while one being a part of a Western educational institution.
Okay, I mean, if I may say so, both of them are elite institutions, which I feel very fortunate to be part of. Stephens was wonderful. Stephens is actually established in 1881 by the Cambridge Mission. So Oxford and Cambridge have very similar study patterns, which kind of even got reflected at Stephens. So a lot of the lingo we used at Stephens, the rules we had, etc., the conventions we had were actually very similar to Oxford and Cambridge. So when I went to Oxford, I was actually very familiar with a lot of them. And Delhi University has actually taken up a lot of these Oxbridge, things, and tried to implement them. The fundamental difference between these two institutions, if I may say so, is the method of study. So at least for the graduate course, if we just talk about that for a moment, in the graduate course, the more important thing here is at Oxford is doing the self study. It's very self motivated as a course. There is no fixed syllabus. Professors fix a syllabus they think is relevant. So you may be doing things which you feel are irrelevant. You don't want to do it. You want to learn about the environment. You may not learn about waste management. Instead, you may be learning about forest management, things like that. So it's more decentralized and professor centric in Oxford. Unlike Delhi University, which has a central syllabus, everybody is following that, etc. Then there's the matter of tutorials. Both have tutorials. So it's a small group of students with a professor, and you discuss what has been taught in class, what are any doubts, etc. For Oxford, it's basically tutorials are basically essays you have to also submit. So whatever is taught in class, you submit an essay based on that. The professor marks you or talks to you about it. So it's a writing improvement, argumentation improvement, everything, and you can get into fights with professors, etc. So it's quite an intellectually invigorating exercise. Compared to that, in Delhi University, I found the tutorials were mostly reading oriented. So, Delhi University has given you 25 readings. You read 3 of them and come and you not discuss, just tell me what you've read. It's a little like that. Some professors, of course, took it a step ahead, made us look critically at the readings. But otherwise, what I learned at Oxford, which was not there at DU, was how to, for example, in history, a lot of people have written on the Swadeshi movement, right from 1905 when it happened till now. New books are being published on it every day. But essentially, why are these books being published? What is A saying about the Swadeshi movement, which is different from B? That is what Oxford really taught me, to identify the argument and make you make your brain understand that why are these books being published, why are they different. And unlike in Delhi University, like in India, you have jugaad material. somebody has written down notes and you can basically, there's like a guidebook. In Oxford, there's nothing like a guidebook. And the theory you they teach, uske baad examples you find you do. So for example, they'll teach you about, the dynamics of power, like as an intellectual, philosophical context. Now that's application you find out. Find papers, find this. So it's more oriented with individual learning, while DU is more syllabus exam oriented, at least for the undergraduate.
Definitely, I really do like the system of Oxford because it is more oriented towards the personal development of a person rather than just learning what's in the book and then just filling it out in the exam. That is something I definitely agree with, even when it comes to education, say in high school, because I know a lot of people who study in the US and they don't really have to deal with the enormous pressure that comes around with, say, class 10 or 12 boards. So I really do like that.
Yeah, and there is a difference, may I say this, between Indian students who go and study at Oxford and students who studied in the UK or abroad. Because, at DU or at any college all over India, for your undergraduate, your opinion doesn't matter. Okay, you basically are trying to figure out the theories, learn about the theories. There's no argument as such, but there at Oxford, each paper you write is an argument that you present, and finding your own voice is very difficult in the master's level, which is a very short course. It's just a 2-year course. For most people, it's a 1-year course. So that was very difficult. And people who came, from the West didn't have that problem at all because they did it from their school.
Definitely. I think this is the same in IB board as well, because there they are made to write essays, argumentative essays, and just essays where they criticize someone else's working, even though that may be negative, but that is channeling some passion into the person about whatever cause they're writing about.
Absolutely. Like, for example, you may ask, can ask this question to a bachelor student that, I don't know, what could Hitler have done differently? But that's a very valid question, at Oxford, and people will think about it. So you essentially think more critically, and it's really great. Yeah.
Definitely. So, would you say that Oxford is more collaborative or competitive?
I think it's a mixture of both. It's more collaborative than competitive, honestly. I feel people once, like, I don't see too much competition. Like, in India, you have, you know, mothers standing outside, question paper mein kya aaya? And then you'll have, oh, my daughter got 3 marks more than your daughter. It's not competitive like that. Or, who's first, who's second in class. Things are not competitive like that. I think Oxford is a more, at least for the graduate level, more individual journey, because I was also, like, I was a student and I was a research student as well, both. It's more of an individual journey, like, and everybody's trajectory is different. So if you find similar people, a lot of collaborative works do come out, writing papers together. I might write a paper with, I'm as you can understand, I'm at the extreme end of the humanities, and I might write a paper, I'm thinking, with someone from the hard sciences, in like medical sciences or something, to understand the connection between arts and sciences, things like that. So I think it's a very collaborative space. It gives you a lot of chance to collaborate and meet a lot of people. So that I really appreciate. And I don't think it's that competitive. I'm not sure about undergraduate studies at Oxford, but I don't think it's that competitive. I think it's more, I think the competition is with yourself. How much can you think and figure it out?
Definitely. I feel that competition with yourself is the most important and crucial competition you have. And when we speak about competitiveness in Indian system, I think it is something which is extremely prevalent, because even when we think about competitive exams, say like the JEE, so there also you get into colleges based on your ranking. So even if I say I'm not interested into mechanical engineering, I will still have to take up that just because of my rank. So I really appreciate that thing about Western education systems.
Yeah, but also like there's a paradox to it. I mean, at the same time, like I did well at Stephens, I got through. So many others didn't get through. Also, like I feel like um, once you enter, it's different. But till the time you enter, it's quite competitive. You know.
Definitely. So how would you describe your experience at Oxford?
I think it's quite challenging, honestly. It's very, as you can, I think, get a grasp of how different the system is from India. I think first thing is kind of getting attuned to that learning curve, like suddenly like my professor, my supervisor was asking me to criticize really big people I respected. And in my head, I was like, I'm just a little girl. How will I criticize such big people who have died? But you learn that. You learn that and you find your voice. So that was challenging, finding your own voice. The style of study itself is different. So it's a very self-motivated, being self-motivated, motivating to yourself is very important. And also of course, when you're shifting to somewhere else, culturally it is also very different to India in terms of etiquette, in terms of food, dress. So it's a very crucial element, I think, which is often overlooked about experience. I mean, that is also another adjusting that you have to do there, which is very substantial and takes a lot of mental and physical effort.
Definitely. So any one experience that at Oxford that left a mark on you and you would like to share it with our audience here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I thought, just, I mean, one thing I learned from Oxford was, to read slowly and to read reflectively. I mean, overnight you can just finish a book, but you don't finish that book. You think about what the person has written. So I did speak about this. One thing I had an experience at Oxford about was, this. There's obviously a lot of, while I was at Oxford, the Black Lives Movement, Black Lives Matter happened, BLM, and obviously it spread to Oxford. There was the Rhodes Must Fall, protests, and our department being very active in discussions like this, having discussion. And a friend of mine said something very important. He is from America. He's a priest. He's a Black priest in America, and he was telling me that it's very difficult because we were always fighting in that group. This person's idea of equality doesn't match that person doesn't match, around Black Lives Matter. And he said that these conversations are like landmines. These conversations around equality, around protest, etc., are like landmines, and when you step on it, you don't know if you stepped on the right or the wrong landmine. You don't know if what you said will explode into something else. People will take it differently, etc. But what matters a lot is that intention to bring about a change. you know so to really think about how you can bring about a change in the lives of people, in definitely you'll make mistakes while doing that, but to really do it still and learn from it and do it again, stand corrected, and again have another go at it and try to change the world in whatever way possible.
Definitely, what he said was extremely inspiring. Even when we take it into context of people in the younger generations, people tend to think that, oh, I'm so young, what change can I make? But I think it is when we realize the power our voice holds is when we understand our true potential and what impact it may have on the surrounding underrepresented and underprivileged communities.
Yeah, absolutely. So even if we may say, we may not be always the most politically educated, politically correct people, in a lot of ways, but it is the deep thought and intention that matters. And you can learn and pick up that and, help change.
Definitely. So, as students who are attending online classes right now, what opportunities should we take advantage of? ones which may be beneficial when we apply to colleges, both for undergraduates and graduate degrees?
I think, you know, you should definitely look at extracurriculars. You should look at work experience. So let's look at this work ex and extracurriculars, because obviously, so one thing is, in India, at least in Calcutta where I'm from, every child can sing, draw, or dance. At least every girl I know can either sing, draw, or dance. Parents, first thing, especially Bengali parents, they put the children in all three and see what fits and one continues. The most important thing is that you don't end up wasting your time. So what happened with me is that I paint, and I paint a lot. But the thing is, I never got any accreditation of my painting. So one drawing sir used to come, I used to learn with him, I used to paint, and a lot of paintings. See, my paintings are there right behind me.
That is so pretty. I was actually having a look at that before.
Haha, thank you. But the problem is, I don't have any formal art school certificate. Does that make sense? So whatever you do, you need to have evidence of that. You can sing, great, but nobody in your app SOP will know you really sing without you saying that I studied here for 12 years and I got this certificate at the end. So whatever you do, especially extracurriculars, don't do it blindly. Have something, like have physical evidence for it, because otherwise it's very difficult to otherwise prove to a committee. Now I have different kinds of accreditations for art, etc. But at one point it is very difficult, and for something, when you're applying for something like the roads, etc., obviously they are looking for people with a very strong extracurricular. So if you are at school, and if you start thinking you want to apply or you want something along those lines, you need to have that evidence. And otherwise, if you look at work X, and a lot of people, and let me tell you the truth now, my trajectory, academic trajectory, bachelor's, master's, PhD, all in one goal, and from school, that too. I've been studying a lot, evidently, but this is not the reality for most people. Okay, most people come to Oxford, Cambridge, LSE, and they do these 1 year masters, 2 years masters max. Very few people out of that stay for PhDs. Obviously it's longer, it's harder, etc. But a lot of people who coming for these are also people who have work experience, and that counts. So for example, I'm working on waste. Okay, so but someone who has worked with the government on waste would obviously get preference over me when I'm applying for my PhD, right? Thankfully there was nobody, but in theory that can happen, right? So work X has a value, but also if you have work X, it's very difficult to do something like a PhD, because you will be a student again. Like, it's a mindset difference. And also this whole matter of studying every day, reading every day, reading critically, it's a shift, and it's a temporary shift. It's not like you're going to do that for the rest of your life. So it's something to really think about when a lot of people want to do masters abroad, and there is a greater traffic every year of Indian students going out doing these 1 year masters, and there's very little funding for them as well. I mean, there is funding, but not a lot, compared to the volume of people who go. And it's huge, let me tell you, the volume. So really kind of seeing whatever you do, like, get your certificates. If you're doing work X, like, be good at what you do. And everything in your application should add up to the story you want to tell the people you're applying to. That, if I'm passionate about the environment, my internships, the work I have done, my work X, my achievements should all reflect that. So that is all I have to say on this.
So when we are speaking about high school, so how did Modern Eye help you where you are today? Modern Eye is an extremely prestigious university. Extremely prestigious school. My sister is an alumni from Modern High. So how do you think it helped you reach where you are? Because school helps you build a very important foundation. So how do you think that foundation has helped you reach where you are pursuing a doctoral degree right now in social anthropology?
So I think my school helped me like so much. Honestly, I was the quiet kid at school, very non-confident, just chup chap staying, you know. But in 11 and 12, and I was more quiet because I was not great at science. I was the kid who could score a 20 on 20 on maths or a 7 on 20. Like things could go either way for me. So the moment I left maths, and that uncertainty math brought with it in my life, I became really, like, I was good before, I became really good. And then Modna really gave me the opportunity to really shine, So at the school level, Modna gave me the opportunity to write a paper. They gave even, for the stereotypical portrayal of women in Bollywood. I was telling you about that. And from that paper, somehow they got me into this conference, this college, Loreto College conference on psychology. And I presented the paper and I won an award for the best speaker. I was the only school student to do that. I was actually the only school student there. We were the only school that was there, and I got it. And, there were proper college people there, and I don't know, but Modena gave me that push, that opportunity. And somehow, I don't know how they got me through that. But, they even got me a place there in the first place. And that became a game changer for my any application, I did. Because when I applied to Stephen's, like I was the only person, I guess, who had a paper and an award for a paper presentation at that point. And so naturally the schools become very important because they give you that push. And it is very sad that not all schools can give that push, I feel, because it also has to do a lot, with our class structure. We are English speaking, we are privileged, we all go to a privileged set of schools. So obviously a lot of people otherwise miss out on these opportunities. And Modna at that point really gave me that push that I really needed. And I think that really changed my trajectory of where I would go and where I would land up, So I'm very, very grateful to my school and my principal for that.
Definitely. I think that is really, really great about what they did and how they pushed you into becoming such a confident individual. So just the last question. How would you describe your experience? What advice would you give to someone who is setting off in a similar direction?
What advice? I think first is finding what you like to do is very important. So if you don't want to, do engineering, don't do engineering. Second thing is keep on honing your extracurriculars, not just for certificates, etc., but for your own mental health. It goes a very long way. And the third thing is, have faith in yourself that, you'll land up somewhere. When I was applying for college, my undergrad, I had a plan A to a plan J. Yeah, I had like till plan J or K or something. My friend reminded me that day that, oh, you got through the PhD at Oxford. Did you also have a plan till plan J? Strangely, I only had a plan A and a plan B. So, that belief in yourself. And I keep on telling myself that as long as I can read, I can understand words, letters strung into words. And as long as I can do some basic maths, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, I will be okay. So this is another advice I have because I'm sure this is a very difficult time for a lot of young students because, the board exams are there. I was teaching at Modern High last month and I understood, the board question paper itself pattern has changed. So it's a very uncertain time.
It's very new for everyone and it's like the first time this is happening. So it's extremely confusing. I'm sending my dad's stuff to different places to buy 10, 12 MCQ books, not knowing
Yeah.
which one will
Because
turn out to be a good one.
Yeah, because also, MCQ books, MCQ prep is different from long answer prep. And it was difficult for even me because I was teaching political science to 11 and 12s. So for the 12s, I had to set a paper, as a test. And I didn't know, I've never given an MCQ like that, and neither have the teachers. So it's actually very difficult to understand what the question pattern will be. So that is why, I even told my students that no matter what happens, you can read, you can understand what words mean, and you will obviously read the syllabus and go. So you will be able to figure it out. So have that faith and confidence in you to go for the most probable correct answer. So yeah, so if you're giving your boards, all the best to you too.
Thank you so much. I actually have to give my pre-boards exam day after tomorrow, and it just suddenly the dates just suddenly came out last week, and I was so shocked seeing that because I've been preparing for this fundraiser for over a month now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's difficult, but don't worry, as you can read, write, and you don't even need to write, you need to just give a tick. So you
Perfect. So thank you so much for this lovely session. It was such a privilege having you with us. I deeply, deeply thank you for so generously agreeing and willing to be a part of our initiative. Your contribution here will be always remembered by our team here at Ekansh and various young women it will further empower. We have raised over 20,000 rupees